Chapter 1 Mountain Legends. High in the remote northern mountains where the air was thin and the peaks were perpetually capped with snow, there was a place few dared to venture, an alpine meadow, known only in whispered stories. It was said that this meadow held ancient mystical powers, guarded by a Gardevoir, who had lived there for centuries. Locals called her the Silent Protector, and legend had it that those who entered the meadow seeking wisdom or strength had to prove themselves worthy of her guidance. It was this legend that drove Aiden, a determined mountaineer, to scale the treacherous heights of the Northreach peaks. Aiden wasn't just looking for adventure. He needed answers. His village, nestled in the valley below, was under threat from unpredictable avalanches. The mountains that once protected the valley were now unstable, as though the earth itself had grown restless. With each passing winter, the threat of disaster loomed larger. The village elders believed the only way to save their home was to seek out the legendary Gardevoir and ask for her help. Aiden, known for his endurance and bravery, volunteered to take on the dangerous mission. After days of climbing through jagged cliffs and narrow passes, Aiden finally reached the Alpine meadow. The sight took his breath away. Rolling green hills dotted with vibrant wildflowers, framed by towering pine trees and glistening mountain peaks. The air was fresh, crisp, and unlike anything he had ever breathed before. But as beautiful as the meadow was, it was eerily quiet. The usual sounds of birds and wind were absent, replaced by a deep, unsettling stillness. Aiden knew Gardevoir was watching. He could feel her presence. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward into the meadow, hoping the stories were true. Moments later, a soft glow appeared on the far side of the clearing, and from that light, Gardevoir emerged. Her presence was ethereal, almost otherworldly, as she floated gracefully above the ground, her gown rippling like water, her eyes glowing with a soft, gentle light, met Aiden's, and he felt her voice, not through his ears, but directly in his mind. "Why have you come to this sacred place?" Gardevoir asked, her voice calm and melodic. Aiden swallowed hard, standing taller. "I've come to ask for your help. My village is in danger. Avalanche after avalanche threatens to bury us. The mountains have changed, and we don't know why. I was told you could guide us, help us understand the balance of the earth." Gardevoir studied him for a long moment, her eyes unreadable. Finally she spoke. "The mountains are alive with energy, and they are indeed out of balance. But it is not just the earth that has shifted. It is the hearts of those who live below. To save your village, you must first understand this connection. Follow me and prepare yourself for what lies ahead." With that, she turned and glided deeper into the meadow, and Aiden, his heart racing, followed. Chapter 2 The Silent Protector. Gardevoir led Aiden to a secluded spot within the meadow, where a large ancient stone stood, half buried in the ground. It was covered in strange, intricate carvings, symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint glow. The stone felt important, like it had been there long before the mountains themselves. Aiden gazed at the carvings, unsure of their meaning. "What is this?" he asked, his voice hushed. "This is an ancient marker," Gardevoir explained, her voice in his mind once again. "It represents the bond between the people and the land. Long ago, the people who lived in these mountains respected the earth's balance, and the mountains protected them in return. But over time, that bond has been forgotten. The people now take from the land without understanding it, and the mountains have grown restless in response. Aiden felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had seen it himself, the way the villagers had expanded their farms, cut down trees for new buildings, and tunneled deeper into the mountains for resources. No one had thought twice about it. But now, the earth was striking back. "Can it be fixed?" he asked, desperation creeping into his voice. "Can we restore the balance?" Gardevoir closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to the mountains themselves. "Yes, but it will not be easy. You must become the bridge between the people and the land. You must guide them to understand that they are not separate from the mountains, but a part of them." Aiden's heart pounded in his chest. He wasn't sure he was capable of such a thing. How could one person change the mindset of an entire village? "How do I begin?" he asked. Gardevoir looked at him, her expression softening. "You begin by understanding the mountain's pain." Before Aiden could ask what she meant, the ground beneath them began to tremble. At first, it was subtle, barely noticeable, but within moments, the trembling grew into a violent quake. The trees around the meadow swayed, and a deep rumble echoed from the peaks above. Suddenly, the mountain released a deafening roar, and Aiden knew what was happening. An avalanche. Snow and rock thundered down the mountainside, heading straight for the meadow. "You must stop it," Aiden shouted, turning to Gardevoir, panic rising in his chest. But Gardevoir shook her head. "This is your trial. You must calm the mountain's rage, feel its pain, and understand it." Aiden was frozen for a moment, fear gripping him as the avalanche barreled closer. But then he remembered Gardevoir's words. He had to feel the connection. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and reached out with his senses, trying to feel the energy of the earth beneath him. At first, there was only chaos, the rumbling of the ground, the rush of snow, the panic in his chest. But slowly, as he focused, he began to sense something deeper, a low, mournful cry, like the mountain itself was weeping. It wasn't anger he felt from the avalanche. It was sorrow. The mountain was grieving for the way it had been treated, for the way the people had forgotten the old ways, and now it was lashing out in desperation. Aiden's heart ached, and without thinking, he knelt on the ground, placing his hands on the earth. "I hear you," he whispered, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry." To his astonishment, the avalanche began to slow. The snow and rocks lost their momentum, and the earth stopped shaking. The mountain, it seemed, had heard him too. When he opened his eyes, the meadow was still. Gardevoir stood beside him, her expression calm. "You have taken the first step," she said. "The mountains are listening." Chapter 3. Nature's Wrath. The following morning, Aiden stood at the edge of the meadow, gazing out at the village far below. The path back down the mountain would be long and treacherous, but he knew what he had to do. Gardevoir had given him the knowledge, but now it was up to him to guide his people. "The villagers will not believe this easily," he said, turning to Gardevoir. "They've lived their lives thinking the earth is something to be conquered. How do I make them understand?" Gardevoir's eyes were soft, but there was strength in her voice. "Lead by example, Aiden. Show them what you have learned. They will not all listen, but the mountain's pain will continue to grow if nothing changes. Time is running out." Aiden nodded, determination settling in his chest. He descended the mountain and returned to the village, where the elders and townspeople waited for news. They were eager to know if he had found Gardevoir and if she would save them. But Aiden told them the truth. The mountains can't be saved by magic alone. We are part of the problem, and we must be part of the solution. We've taken too much without giving back, and the earth is suffering for it. At first, many villagers scoffed at him. They didn't believe that the mountains could feel or that their actions had caused such disasters. But some listened. Slowly, Aiden began to teach them what he had learned from Gardevoir: the importance of living in balance with the earth, of respecting the land that gave them life. As the weeks passed, the village began to change. The elders agreed to limit their expansion into the forests, and new measures were put in place to ensure the mountains were treated with care. Aiden led by example, planting new trees and restoring old paths that had been damaged by overuse. And slowly, the mountains responded. The avalanches became less frequent, the ground more stable, and the village began to feel safe once more. One night, as Aiden stood at the edge of the village, looking up at the peaks, he felt a familiar presence beside him. Gardevoir appeared, her form shimmering in the moonlight. "The balance is being restored," she said, her voice filled with quiet pride. "You have done well, Aiden. The mountains will remember your actions, and so will the earth." Aiden smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. He had come